Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, about 11 o'clock. This is Russell with Russell Does Stuff. If you're new to the channel, I work 6 hours on Monday. I work 6 hours on Tuesdays, and whatever I don't get done, I'll finish up on Wednesday. And this morning I got up and worked for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. I decided to put in some extra effort on a couple lawns I couldn't get done on Monday and Tuesday, and do the hedges. I did the hedges. I weed eated all the ditches and stuff. These are corner lots. These two properties out of, I think, 3 or 4 I did this morning are corner lots. And I try to weed eat the ditches every other week. When I was just starting out with my business, I would do them every week because I didn't want any issues with customers and stuff. I didn't want any objections, any complaints, anything. But now people have gotten to know me, and some people aren't home and some people are home. They get it. It's hard work, and it doesn't have to be done every week. So I got home, had some peanut butter and toast, watched a little YouTube, tried to see if I could sneak a nap. I couldn't do it. Got too many things on my mind. I've got an auction coming up that I'm putting the Jeep Scrambler in, and I wanted to make another video, and I wanted to talk about how something as simple as a lawnmower can lead to the lifestyle that I have. And I'm not bragging or anything, mowing lawns and doing landscape and cleanup work and tree work and stuff like that's not easy. But when I bought mowers like this, they changed my life. I could mow faster. I could do more. That was a good thing. I needed that. If without that, I wouldn't have this. I wouldn't have that. I wouldn't have that. That's my 50th birthday present to myself. I wouldn't have that. I wouldn't have this dog. I wouldn't have any of these tools that I have. You walk around my shop and you see all this stuff. I restored a go-kart that my dad gave us for Christmas when I was 4 years old. I have welders, ladders. I have parts for Jeeps up there. Batteries, tools, things to put tools in. I got a Bible. I think someone gave that to me. I have about 15 Bibles. All these tools cost money. Air compressors. I've got more air compressors than I know what to do with. Paint. I do paint and body work. All that stuff's not cheap. Paint. You ever bought paint at the paint store? That stuff's not cheap either. Okay? All this stuff costs money. And that lawnmower helped me do all this. Here's another shot. I bought my dad a generator that has a battery on it, so he doesn't have to pull the cords anymore. He had a heart transplant, so I don't want him pulling cords no more. And my dad likes to play pool, so I bought a pool table so when he comes over, we can shoot pool, okay? The TV costs money. I like to watch YouTube when I'm out here. All that was possible from a lawnmower. And I remember being picked on. You do what for a living? You mow lawns? Yeah, I mow lawns. Ew. But I have a secret. When you work for yourself, you can become wealthy. When you work for other people, it's hard to become wealthy. I own a house because of a lawnmower. I own this truck because of a lawnmower. I'm not bragging or anything. I'm just trying to prove a point. Your wrenches and your tools, if you're not in the lawn business, your tools, you can get stuff like this with your tools by using your tools. One of the greatest tools I had when I started my business was a shovel. It was a Wolverine shovel. It weighed like, I don't know, 65, 70 pounds. I found it on an abandoned house I was working on. It was like Christmas Day when I found that shovel. I was able to now dig up trees. I was able to dig holes. I was able to just triple my digging capabilities. It was a game changer. And I still have that shovel. It's 14 years old, and there's about 1 foot of it missing. This shop was possible because of a mower. And I had to ride around on that mower. And the other ones, a lot. The shop's haunted. The door just went up. Winston was like, "What's going on?" The gate, everything costs money. A service business, I preach it over and over again. Get in a service business. If you don't understand real estate or stocks or stuff like computers and stuff like that, I don't understand any of that stuff. But I know how to work hard. I understand that. I think I get my work hard from my dad's father. He was a hard-working son of a sucker, man. And my dad worked hard too. My dad was just as of a hard of a worker. And I was lucky enough to be around people that worked just as hard. But the people I was working for when I was younger, they were working for someone else. Okay. And that's all I knew. I wanted to have a good boss man to work for. I wanted to take care of him as best I could, make him look good, do the jobs as hard and fast as I could so my boss man could make money. I never gave any thoughts back then to being a business owner. I work for business owners. And I was conditioned to think that was the lifestyle that you're supposed to have. You're supposed to have a boss man growing up. And if your uncle asks you, what you're doing, you tell him you're working. And yes, that's good, Russell. I'm glad you're working. You keeping your boss happy? Yes, sir, I'm keeping my boss happy. That's how I was programmed. Okay. Now, when you're in a service business like I am, you kind of have a lot of bosses. So I work for a bunch of people. They're my boss. And if they're not happy with me, they can fire me and find someone else. But it's a different kind of bosses, okay? I can set my own schedules. If I want to work for those bosses on Monday, I will. If I want to work for them on Friday, I will. If I decide I don't like them anymore and I don't want to work for them anymore, I won't work for those bosses anymore. I let another customer go last week. And he was a guy that was a friend of mine, and he was palling around with somebody who tried to steal he did steal some of my extra work on one of my customers' properties. And the guy actually was trying to get the lawn account. So my good friend decided he wanted to continue being friends with this guy. And if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. All right. And I pleaded my case with this person, and I said, why are you hanging out with this guy? You know what he's been trying to do. This guy is the guy that lost his job and was needing money, and instead of going about it the right way, he was trying to take jobs away from people like me. Okay. And then when he got caught, the guy called me, and he said, "Hey, is it all right if I do some of that stuff on your account?" I said, "You already did it, so why are you asking?" So the friend of mine, decided, to keep hanging around him and doing things with him and stuff, and finally I just said, forget it. I'm not going to take care of any of your stuff anymore, and I'm not going to help you no more. And I was saving him a lot of money over the years, mowing his house at a discount, mowing the grass for a discount, even if it was high, like every other week type stuff, and trimming back his hedges and doing anything he needed in his yard. I was exchanging all those stupid decisions for what I thought was friendship. And he acted no different than my wealthy customers. Once I decided to stand up for myself, I said, "You can keep the $30." Because he left town. He had to go visit his relatives or something up in Michigan or somewhere, and he left without paying me for doing the lawn service. And he goes, "I'll just pay you back when I get home." And I asked him about Brian. I said, "You still hanging out with that guy? You still talking to him?" And he said, "I'll hang out and talk and do whatever I want with whoever I want." I said, "All right, that's cool." I said, "You can keep the money for the lawn service. You don't owe me anything, and I'll take your advice. I will talk and hang out with who I want to talk and hang out with." So it sounds kind of petty, but it really isn't. If somebody did you wrong and you're good friends hanging out with that person, it'd be on your mind a little bit more than normal. So he did what wealthy customers I have do. If I quit a wealthy person's house or they fired me, they would re-landscape their whole house and they would hire a big crew to come in. Well, he complains about money all the time, so that's why I give him discounts and deals and stuff like that and help him, when he needs help. He hired a lawn service to come in there, and I seen him this morning um, mowing and taking care of his lawn, and I'm like, I'm over the moon. I'm glad that he's gonna get people in there, and they're doing a bunch of extra work for him. He had this tree line that would grow way up close to his house, and I'd ask him, "Hey, you want to trim this back? I'll even do it for free." Nah, he was okay with me trying to mow along the side of his house with this tree line in my way all the time for years. And now he decides he wants to carve a nice pathway for the new lawn service. A few years ago, this probably would have hurt my feelings or whatever, but my feelings aren't hurt. I'm happy these guys got a job. I hope he's going to pay regular rates for lawn service now. And is he going to learn a lesson? No. You know, he's going to do what he's going to do, and he's going to be who he's going to be. And I can't change that. I only can change myself and what I do. Okay. I've given him every opportunity to quit hanging out with that guy that screwed me over, and I have decisions to make. I don't want to think about it anymore, and I wanted to move on, and that's what I did. And he's going to pay a little bit more for lawn care because I don't know anybody that will do what I was doing every other week and nothing in the winter, and you have company come over, go over and make your house look good. That's all over with now. I put out a video yesterday, and I told everybody there was a bunch of employees I probably forgot to mention. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, boom, I woke up and I remembered some. I had this guy. Stood about this tall. He was jacked. He was a massive guy, bald head. He was one of my managers in my cabinet shop. His name was Steve, and he worked for me for maybe a couple months. He was coming in late all the time. His girlfriend was dropping him off. He would spend all his paycheck, and then Monday he'd ask me for money. And finally, I'm like, why do you always need money on Monday, Steve? You're making good money here. He was probably making $800 or $900 a week to run my cabinet business. And he got mad at me because I wouldn't give him any money. And he pulled his teeth out of his mouth and started doing this with the pencil. We all had pencils because you're always marking something and stuff. He took the pencil out of his ear and it was like jabbing it towards my face. And I'm like, Steve, what's going on? Why are you acting this way? You all right, buddy? He goes, I'm addicted to meth and I need money. I was like, wow, all right. So I tried to help him and stuff, but he was getting himself in a bunch of financial trouble because he was borrowing money, I guess, to do drugs. So that was no fun. It's fixing to pour like cats and dogs and kittens here in a minute. So I'll probably wrap this video up. And there was another kid that I hired. He drove all the way down from Michigan to get a job with me. And he was a good kid. He would drive my equipment funny though. He would stop, start with all the equipment. I guess he was used to being in high traffic areas and stuff. So he drove all my equipment like that, and riding with him was no fun. Good kid. He had all the acclimate of being like a good businessman, entrepreneur type guy. But he was in his 20s and he was doing dumb things to impress girls. One morning he pulled up in this really expensive BMW. And I said, what are you doing? And he wanted the car. He negotiated it. I think his car payment was like $1,200 a month. And he was doing all the wrong and dumb things to impress a woman. And eventually she broke up with him. And he's stuck with his car that only he's driving now and stuff. Long story short, he ended up moving back to where he came from. I think it was Massachusetts he was from. And his friend, he had a friend, I almost hired him. I may have had him work for me for a couple days. But I don't remember his friend's name. And then there was another guy I hired who I met at a restaurant. He was our waiter also, kind of like a Brandon deal. And he needed a job. And this was probably 6 years ago. And I hired him. And one day he freaks out. And I asked him, what's going on? And he wasn't a drug addict or nothing. He had just stopped paying his rent. He was like a year behind on his rent. And he had kids and a wife and stuff. And so he was going to get kicked out of his apartment and stuff. And then he hit me with this story like, I thought you were going to help me get into business. And I says, what are you talking about? He wanted me and threatened me. He wanted $30,000 to open up a catering business. I said, I'll talk to you about the catering business. What do you want to talk about? Hey, you want to do something in business? I'll talk to you. What is it? What do you want to talk about? He didn't want to do lawn care. He only got a job working with me because he thought he could probably smooth talk me into helping him out with his real goal, which was to get in the catering business and go from fair to fair to fair to fair to fair. He knew somebody that was doing that, where they would go to all the county fairs all over the United States and sell stuff. And I thought, hey, that's not a bad idea to get into. You need licensing, it's expensive, you got to have connections and stuff. But he didn't want me to talk to him about any of that stuff. He just wanted the money. He said he'll go set up everything and do everything, and he'd send me money once in a while. I said, you're out of your mind. I'm not doing anything like that, ever. So he ended up getting mad. I gave him his last paycheck, and I haven't seen him since. I've driven by his apartment where he was living in maybe 6 or 7 months ago, and someone else is living there. But, I wish him all the best. He said he was a good cook, or he had some good recipes that he thought people would be interested in buying at the fairs and stuff. And I'll listen to anybody. You got an idea, talk to me about it. And the worst anyone or anybody can say is no, it's not for me. You know, I would have needed a bit of control in that. You know, I'll buy everything. It'll be in my name, and show me you're getting the contracts with the people in the fair and stuff, and we'll do some business. So, well, anyway, that's my rant for Wednesday afternoon. And seriously consider starting a business or buying a business. Okay. If you're none of the things I talked about in the beginning of this video, I implore you guys to do that. Okay. Get a business where they're writing you a check every month. So this is Russell with Russell Does Stuff, and if my story helps anyone out, cool. If you like this kind of stuff, hit the subscribe and like button. It helps the channel out. We have a goal of 200 subscribers, and then another goal, and then another goal. And I'll catch you on the next one.